Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode on Let's Talk About Us with Uche. I am your host, Uche. As usual, to everyone who's been supporting me, thank you so much for your incredible support. If you're new to my podcast, please make sure to download, subscribe, share with your friends and family. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, please also make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so anytime I upload a video, you'll be the very first to be notified. Thank you very much for your continued support. So for today's episode, I decided to create an open forum discussion to talk about the harsh realities of living on the African continent, directly coming from Africans. This episode is an attempt to address some of the unrealistic Western opinions on what life in Africa is all about. Please stay tuned for the episode. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thank you guys so much for joining me on my podcast episode today. We're going to be discussing Africa, basically talking about the realities of living in Africa. Oftentimes, a lot of people all around the world have like misconceptions about what the reality of Africa is, or reality of living in Africa, especially as an African. Unfortunately, this is being perpetuated by Western media, specifically Hollywood, where Hollywood either portrays the worst of Africa, or the fairy tales, fantasy, superficial utopia, all in an effort to capitalize on people's ignorance of the reality in Africa. So today, the point of this discussion is basically to try to understand the reality from a very personal perspective. And I really do appreciate all four of you guys here honoring my discussion today. I really do appreciate it. If you guys can kind of give a quick introduction of yourselves, feel free to be anonymous if you feel comfortable, or if you want to use your full name, not a problem. Just kind of give us your name, your background, what country you live in, just anything that may be relevant to the discussion.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lati Koza, and I'm from South Africa. And yeah, I'm from South Africa, but my mom and dad were actually refugees from Mozambique. They moved to South Africa during the 80s in order to get a better life. And I'm joining this call all the way from Washington State in the United States of America. I'm attending university at Whitman College, and it is an opportunity that I never dreamed will come into life, but I'm glad to be where I am today. And I'm glad to be here with all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucky. We appreciate you being here, and welcome back to America. I know you just got back to America literally a few days ago, so thank you for taking time off from your jet lag process to join us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi everyone, my name is Sam Oji. I am from Nigeria, the southeastern part of Nigeria. I'm a biochemist. I currently work with the Nigerian Police Force Medical Services here in Nigeria. It's a great opportunity to be here, and I appreciate this honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you for taking your time this weekend to join this discussion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Joe. I am a freelance writer from Nairobi, Kenya, currently living in Mombasa. Yes, that's all.
Thank you very much, Joe. So, like I said, I just wanted to have a discussion about the realities of living in Africa, from a very personal perspective, because a lot of times there's so much misconceptions of living in Africa, even unfortunately by Africans in the diaspora. As a Nigerian myself who live in America, oftentimes I hear even Nigerian Americans in America who have very diluted or misconstrued mindset or perspective of what Africa or life back in Africa is. So I wanted to kind of, get like a firsthand exposure, firsthand experience from somebody who actually lives the realities, everyday realities of living in Africa. And I do want to start by asking, can you guys kind of share about your tribes, your heritage, your cultural norms, heritage, history, background that you may be proud of, something that makes you happy, something that makes you very fulfilled and very proud of your cultural heritage?
So for myself, my cultural background, it's mostly influenced by Mozambique and South African. So South African expect it, the culture from Eswatini, because we live very close to the Eswatini border and the Mozambique border. So I'm living in a culture with a mix of those two. And say one of the most interesting things with that is, how like the cultures come together, because you take some things from what people do in Mozambique and some things that people do in Eswatini. For example, most of my family members or the people coming from Mozambique, they're more focused in physical labor and farming and stuff like that. But then what you realize is that most of the people coming in from Eswatini, they're most likely to be involved in things like education and stuff like that. So, it's very interesting to live in a culture that combines those two. And I think culturally, we really care about our nature. My dad, he's a traditional healer, and growing up as a kid, I never went to see a doctor or went to a clinic because I always had my father there for me, and he would help me out if I was sick with anything. So that's something with the culture that I'm very proud of. And you see it amongst other people. You always go to a traditional healer to get advice about life, and to, if ever you need some sort of counseling, there are people that are always there to help us out. So that's a little bit about my culture that I'm very proud of. Thank you.
So basically, you're saying that you're proud of a sense of community, sense of brotherhood, togetherness of your culture. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. Yeah, like I think the thing is with traditional healers, they mostly know history and they know the value of plants. Like if you take my dad to the forest, to show you that this plant is for this and that. And for people who, some of them cannot afford to go see a doctor, like a Western doctor, my dad is someone who is very useful for the community.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing. And Sam, you can please share what are some aspects of your cultural heritage that you may be proud of, that you're very proud of to be part of, and possibly would like to pass on to your own kids someday?
Yes, thank you very much. Like I already introduced myself. I'm from the southeastern part of Nigeria. We're called the Igbos. Uh, I think one of the most unique things about us is the resilience, the ability to face whatever we see. We're mostly categorized as businessmen. Um, we believe in a lot of stuff. We believe in uh, the spiritual aspect of our lives. So we are mostly Christians from the southeastern part of Nigeria. We believe in creation, which we call in our dialect Okike. We believe in supernatural forces of deities. One of the unique parts about us is our ability to raise the young ones. We call it apprenticeship, where you have the older ones, the master servant relationship, where you have a master create a business, invite a young guy, a young boy from whichever background he comes, does it, serves him for say 2, 3, 4 years, and at the end of the year of service, he settles him, help him open his own business. I think that's the one unique spirit we have. Like, we're people who, no matter where we find ourselves, whether in the north or in the south or in the east or in the west, we're very, very business oriented. We're very strong minded people. We are very happy people. It's more like Fela saying, smiling at your pain. You're laughing when you're going through suffering. More like Fela song, right? The Nigerian popular artist in those days in the 90s. Yeah, I think that's the most unique things about we, the Igbos. Like, even when you're going through hard times, strong times, like, you see yourself still going through it with joy, like with pride, and hoping that things will actually get better. I think that's the uniqueness in my tribe, or where I'm from. And then we have a lot of stuff to believe in. Like, we have our unique attire. Like, we have our traditional attire, which distinguishes us. We call it Weagu, right? The one that has the lion face on it. Then we also practice our chieftaincy titles. So we have a lot of stuff that distinguishes us from other tribes that makes us very unique. And like I said, we're mostly from the southeastern part of Nigeria, with around 4 or 5 states: Abia, Enugu, Anambra, and then Imo State. And like I said, that's what makes us very unique and different from others. Our ability to endure, ability to move, ability to help each other.
Thank you very much. I could totally relate. As a Nigerian person, I've always said that one of the unique qualities of Nigerians, and of course, not just Nigerians, but I could speak from a personal perspective, is the fact that a lot of Nigerians are just naturally very resilient. And I know a lot of my resilience came from being Nigerian, having lived in Nigeria, and being raised by Nigerian parents. So yeah, I could totally relate to that. Joe, could you please answer that question?
I actually like what both Sam and Lucky said, because for me it's a little bit different being having been born in Nairobi, which is like the biggest city in Kenya, and you know, for me, I'm used to the city life. So and I think the thing about Nairobi, it's a little bit Western, but I would say one of the things that I'm proud of my tribesmen is that they spearheaded the um, fight for independence for Kenya, and so that's one of the most thing that I'm proud. That's the one thing that I'm really proud of, and I think just also they're really hardworking and they are resilient, and yeah, they in one way or another carry the economy of the country because they have. I come from a part of Kenya where we have the most fertile bit of land, and um, you know, when it comes to agriculture, we can feed the whole country with just a very little small, with a very little piece of land.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I guess mine, it's as simple as that. Mainly because I was brought up in Nairobi, which is a city, so I'm not really too cultured in that sense.
Yeah.
I have very different influences when it comes to that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So for this next part of the discussion, I wanted to be an open forum discussion. So basically, I do want to talk about just like a deep sense of pride in Africa. And me
Mm.
personally, when I was born in Nigeria, I moved to America as a minor, lived in my, even prior to moving to America, my family has always been associated with America, affiliated with America. My siblings were born in America. Most of my cousins are American. So I've always had that American culture, American mindset in my family since I was a kid. And a lot of that influenced my mentality. And growing up as a kid, I didn't really have a deep sense of gratitude, deep sense of appreciation, deep sense of pride of being African. It wasn't until I moved to America and started getting older that I started looking back at my heritage, my cultural heritage as an African, and started appreciating it more. Especially living in America where there's a lot of diversity, but then also there's a lot of niches, a lot of cliques. America's a melting pot, as most people would know. There's so many different pockets. You have Pakistanis, you have Indians, you have the Chinese, you have so many different pockets. You also have the Black Americans, you have the Caribbean blacks, you have the whites, and even within the white community, you have, specific white community like German Americans and Irish Americans, and you have those little cliques. And I started realizing that, the importance of having a sense of family, a sense of community. And also living here in Texas, where there's a lot of Nigerian population, I would often go to Nigerian events, and I just see my culture right in front of me, and I started to appreciate it more deeply about my African heritage. And also, not to sound condescending, a lot of the inspiration is also looking at Black Americans. And I understand that a lot of, unfortunately, it's not their fault that they don't have a sense of cultural heritage because it was robbed from them, but also seeing how a lot of them lack that. I've oftentimes seen or had a lot of Black Americans tell me how jealous they are of the fact that I have a place I could call home, or how much they appreciate, or at least they would appreciate having that sense of, heritage, a place they can call home other than America. There's nothing necessarily wrong with living in America, but at the same time, too, most people are aware of the racial disparity going on in America. So if you guys could kind of share, do you feel like it's a deep sense of gratitude, a deep sense of pride about being African? Because this is something that a lot of Africans at home and in diaspora desperately struggle with. And unfortunately, I feel like there's also a lot of disingenuity. A lot of times Africans, especially African in diaspora, they will claim to be proud of Africa, because it's all word of mouth. But at the end of the day, when it comes to actuality, there's not too much to show that pride, because I feel like it's much easier to say you're proud to be African, especially when you don't live in Africa. And again, I'm not trying to paint Africa in a negative limelight. I just want to get to the root of it, to be more raw with it. So would you say that there's a deep sense of pride, holistic pride to being African? And if there's no sense of pride at all, just be free to share. Not a problem. And please, I want this to be an open discussion. Anybody can chip in at any time.
All right. I'll jump on it.
Yeah.
I feel there is some degree of pride.
Okay.
Personally, for me, I think there's some degree of pride. Mainly because of what potential Africa has in itself as a region. Like when it comes to like how rich Africa is in terms of minerals and all that. So there is that sense of pride, and also having somewhere that I know this is my home, this is where I came from, and I can trace my ancestors, not just virtually, but physically. I can go to this place and this place and be like, oh yeah, this is where my ancestors are from. So I feel in that in on itself, I know that I feel that I know myself. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, and so yeah, just by virtue of that, yeah, there is some sense of pride. But the other bit of it is I haven't been anywhere outside of I haven't lived anywhere outside of my country, so I wouldn't know how it is to live in the US or the UK or any Western country. So I can't really say that I am like I can't really relate to that. So I can only speak of what I know, and that's why I cannot say that I'm 100% proud to come from here when I haven't really experienced anywhere else. So for me, it's just like I would say it's half and half. I am proud of where I come from because I know myself and know my roots, but I cannot really truly say 100% that I'm proud to come or yeah. But I am. I know like I know I am proud of yeah yeah. I think that's that.
Okay, so you're basically there is some sense of pride because that's your heritage and that's basically the only thing you know. But then there's also the other half of it is because there's possibly potential for more, and you don't really have much to
Yeah, there is
compare with.
potential. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and anybody else wants to chip in?
I would like to address the point of sometimes like when you have never been outside the continent. I think once you leave the continent or once you leave your own tribe, your own culture, your own country, and you're in a different place, I've found that to be one of those moments where that pride of, oh, I'm an African or I'm a South African or I'm from this tribe or that tribe, that pride becomes way stronger because what you realize is, oh, there's so much that is great with where I come from. And I feel like it's not, and it depends on the person. Some people, once they go out, they lose sense of that pride. And I think, there's a lot of reasons for why that happens. Like, in most Western countries, you will meet, I don't know, should I say, more progressive people. Like some of them are vegetarian, some of them are vegan, and they will tell you, oh, you're not supposed to eat meat and stuff like that. And I think, like, to me, when they say that, I understand where they're coming from, but I think some of them don't understand how we eat meat in Africa. Like in South Africa, for example, we are not eating meat every day, because we can't afford to do that. But like when you live maybe like in the United States, maybe you can afford to like go buy a burger every day or something like that. So I think there's some misunderstanding, things like that. And just the same with like, hunting. Our traditional clothes in South Africa, they're made out of, leopard skin and some of them out of lion skins, cow skins, concerned with that because they think it is mass consumption, but it is not. So I think I do take a lot of pride, in being African, and then sometimes when you take that pride, other people do not understand. They might criticize because they're not fully aware of the whole picture of what is really going on.
Thank you very much, Lucky, for pitching in that opinion. But I also do want to ask: is there a difference between adjusting to your new environment and also completely getting rid of your culture because there's some type of shame or some type of stigma attached to it? Because I see I see both happening very commonly. It makes sense that when you pack up your bags and move to a new place, you adjust. Like if I was to move to China tomorrow, I would definitely adjust my way of living. My food would be different, but I also would not lose that cultural heritage, the pride of being a Black man from Africa, from Nigeria. So as opposed to somebody who may pack up their bags and move to China and then just completely want to change their name, change everything about them just so that they can be more favored, would you say would you say there's a distinction between both of them?
I would say yes, there is a distinction. Like when you go to a new culture, I think, it is true you need to adapt and you need to get yourself familiar with, the local customs and stuff. I think, yes, we should do that, but to a certain point, there are things that we shouldn't change. Like if you come to a new culture, yes, respect how they do things, but don't let that change any beliefs that you do have about where you're coming from. So I think that's some sort of open-mindedness. Like, for example, I grew up in a culture where, the woman is the one who does the whole cooking, the whole cleaning. And, I attended school in Norway, and there I met people who did things differently. The man was taking care of the children, was cooking, stuff like that. And that's something that I kind of learned from that culture. I'm like, oh, I can bring this back, to my family and see how it works. So I think it is important to adapt, but to not really lose our values, which, I think don't lose your values because you think the values from the other country or from the Western country are way superior than your own.
Thank you. And you, Sam, you want to pitch in?
Yeah, I can quite understand what he said, what Lucky just said. I wanted to ask a question actually.
Yeah,
So if like the culture here, like I mentioned, we're mostly Christian, very practically because we got that from the Western world and all that. And then we get to a place like China, and maybe you're having conversations with someone, and the person is practically, or the community you're staying, and mostly they are not Christian. Is it still normal to not to drop that? We are very religious people here. Like practically 80% of what we do here is just pray for problems to get solved. And then you get there, you see this is a system that's working, and then you're like, okay, is it normal to drop the ideology of this is your kind of your culture? Is it normal to say, okay, I don't think this whole stuff works with me here. I think I have to adapt and change my thinking and my way of life. It's not still part of dropping the culture I grew up with. And then before you answer that question, I think one of the my proudest moments and one of the things I consider whenever I tell someone I'm a Nigerian, I'm an African is I think, like I said before, I believe we can go through whatever life throws at us. Yeah, like you practically, I don't think most Westerners can go through, even though it's actually affecting us on the wrong side. Like you see, we have issues of bad leadership, and then worse because we are resilient, like because we don't care, because we can always push through. Given these 4 years of bad governance, we can always push through. Eat well, and then because we're very happy people, then we're always okay. We're normal, we're okay with whatever system we are in. But our ability to just endure, I think that's what makes me very, very proud of where I'm from. Like you can always go through we're very optimistic, we're very happy. You can always, no matter how bad it is, you always see yourself, yes, this is normal. I think that's what makes me very, very proud of coming from Africa and Nigeria. So I would want you to please answer me. Yeah, I want to get the answer to that question, please.
Going back to your question, dropping, if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong. So you basically talk about if you move to a new country, let's say China, and your cultural practice from your country, say Nigeria, is no longer serving you well. Is it normal? Is it okay to basically drop it and try to adapt to something that makes more sense, that may not necessarily conform to the status quo in Nigeria, but does in China? And your example was religion, I'm guessing?
Yes, exactly.
I think honestly, I think it depends on what that religion means to you. And for people who've been listening to my podcast, I kind of made a distinction between religion and spirituality. Me personally, I'm a spiritualist. I'm not religious at all. I was born in a religious household. Like you said, Sam, I want to say like 100% of Nigerians are religious, almost to a fault. And growing up in Nigeria, it was basically law. If you weren't going to church, or if you weren't going to a mosque in the north, you were basically ostracized, and that was basically the order of the day. And it wasn't until I moved to America and expanded my horizon, I met a lot of people who are not religious, a lot of people who are not even spiritual, some people who are both. That I actually started exploring my options, and I realized that me personally, religion was not necessarily the goal for me. Spirituality is, and I chose to go through that route of spirituality without religion. That was just my choice. Like I didn't have to drop religion or Christianity in order for me to attain spirituality. Some people do both. Some people go to church, they patronize religion, Christianity, but they're also not able to reach that spirituality, at least the spirituality that I try to attain. So honestly, it depends on you as a person. If it's not working for you, I don't see why there's a reason why you should keep going back to something that doesn't work for you. And if it's not working for you, but then society or culture tells you that it should be an integral part of you, part of your existence and part of your identity. This is where I always tell people to challenge it and try to find out as to why. What is the true reason as to why there's so much pressure to maintain a tradition or culture, especially when you know that culture is not serving you right. And I feel like that is a privilege a lot of people like myself who live in the West enjoy more so than people back in Nigeria, because if I was to have the same mentality I have right now back in Nigeria, I would be seen as an outcast. What is wrong with you? You're raised Christian and you're not going to church. Are you a devil worshiper and things like that? But in America, I enjoy more so freedom to pursue who I am, my spirituality, my sense of spirituality than back in Nigeria. And I even still get side eyed here in America, but I still enjoy more so that privilege because of where I'm at. So it really depends on you as a person, and you have to be honest with you as to what that culture means to you. And it's not just religion either. I've had a lot of Nigerians who move here from Nigeria, and they drop certain things. Matter of fact, I had a discussion about some you would know this Ebanku, basically when you try to pay bright price for the wife back in Nigeria. And some Nigerians are not about that life. They drop it because they think it's absurd, and they try to practice more so the Western style, not necessarily because that they don't feel pride in their culture, or because they don't accept what's going on back in like the culture, the cultural norm of what's going on back in their country. It just more so it doesn't work for them. So there's no need for them to keep conforming and going back to something that does not work for them. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, very well. It does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but can I just counter answer what you've just said, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
go
you
ahead.
can.
I don't think all I think there are also good cultural practices that come out of Africa, right? And so what worries me the most is that once you've moved to some other land that is not your home, that you have to adapt to their way of life or their way of living, or just not to be or just to try and fit in. There are things about the African culture that are good, right? So even in religion, there are things that personally, I think individual is a very personal journey. So there are things that might work for that person in terms of religion, and they wouldn't want to change that when they go to a different place just because the place that they've gone to is not that's not how the way they do things. um I feel like as long as I'm not harming someone in any way, and it's not infringing in how I work or how I relate to uh, people, then I should be allowed to do the things that I feel like they're like I have been doing in, I don't know, back home. Because then I feel like when Africans go from Africa and they come from Africa and they go to other places, then they are forced to, or they feel like they have to kind of like change who they are and be something else. And that's just, that just takes away from what makes us unique in that sense.
I totally get your point, Joe. I think there are different factors as to why that is. Sometimes some people really do want to assimilate, and to be fair, it's not just Africans who do this. And I remember when I was high school here in America, I learned about the Irish Americans who were looked down on. You know, even though they were white, they were the bottom white race. And when they moved to America, there was so much desperation and so much pressure for them to assimilate, and
Mm,
they would give their kids more American names. Even some German people, you know, from or white people from Europe, they'll come to America and they try to make sure that the kids have more American accents, more American sounding names. I've had people who change their last names or shorten their last names, even though they're white, you know, just to try to assimilate. I don't think necessarily they're trying to get rid of their cultural heritage completely. But from the question that Sam was asking, I think what he was saying, and I do agree with your understanding of individuality, your mention of individuality. I think it was talking about if that is not serving well, if a particular practice from your culture does not serve you well, it wasn't serving you well back in your home, and now you
oh,
move
okay.
to a totally different country where it's still not serving you well, but now you have the
Right.
freedom to explore, drop it, or do something totally different. With that, like, is there anything wrong with that? And from my perspective, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Going back to what you're saying, individuality, it depends on what that practice is to you or
Yeah.
is not to you, and the real reason why you're doing it. Does that
Yeah,
make
I think
sense?
then, yeah, then I think for me, it will be like if it doesn't work for me here, I'm not going to do it here as well. I'm not going to wait till I get somewhere else and change that fact. Yeah, if it doesn't work for me here, then it doesn't work for me anywhere I go. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I don't need to be out of my country to,
Hmm.
yeah. I do understand that there are laws that might hinder me from, doing certain
Hmm.
things,
Hmm.
but they still wouldn't stop me. Like, yeah, I was brought up in a very Christian family. My
Hmm.
Both my parents are ministers,
Hmm.
and like they've gone to theology school. They do minister in church, but for me that's just not for me. And I
Yeah.
realized that earlier on. And whether it puts me and them in a bad place or not, it's just
Hmm.
not for me. And I'm not going to wait to go to America to be like, oh, maybe now I can not do Christianity because it's not for me. I think, and there are very few of us like that here. We're just like, no, it's not. If it's not working, it's not working, and I'm not going to go somewhere else for me to realize that, oh, I can actually explore these options. And I do understand that maybe I might talk as someone who's privileged in that sense,
I was
but
about to
and
mention.
yeah, and yeah, but and there are people who don't have that that option of being like, yeah,
Yeah.
fuck it, what happens, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think for me that's the only way I change things. I don't need to
Mm.
go anywhere else to be like, oh, this is not. I need to start from where I am and be like, and see how many people join me in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think religion is a part of a person's culture. That's just me being honest. But however,
Mm,
spirituality, or at least a general way of practice spirituality, can be. Like we have African spirituality, Asian spirituality, um, Islam, and things like that. I get that part. However, like going back to what you're saying, there are laws that can prevent you from doing certain things in your country. You know, things that may not necessarily you have to conform to, so to speak. And if you don't have that privilege associated with doing what you want to do, in spite of who's watching back in your country, or you're just a rebel, it may not necessarily work. And in the case of spirituality and religion, at least the over practicing of religion in Africa, which I think is problematic, a lot of people don't necessarily have a choice, even though there's no law that I know of that forces you to go to church, go to the mosque in Nigeria or in Africa. Um, you may not necessarily be able to relate to religion the way most people relate to it, but there's also that social stigma. And the thing with Africa is there's a sense of community. Everybody's all up in everybody else's business because everybody's growing together. You need everybody. As opposed to here in the West, where there's more so a strong sense of individuality. You can literally be anything you want without somebody else behind your back. So you don't want
mm,
to lose that support, that sense of support in your family, and it's a big risk, especially if you're middle income, lower income. Where you need your
yeah.
siblings, you need your family. So it will be very difficult for to kind of detach yourself from that cultural practice of spirituality or religion that most people in your family or your community pursue. And I could see how for a person who already have that mindset that this spirituality, or at least this practice of religion, is not working for them, when they go to a new place, say like the West in America, for example, where people are encouraged to embrace themselves, embrace their individuality, as long as it's legal. There's no sense of you would not be ostracized, so to speak. They're more inclined to do that.
Yeah. And they realize, oh shit, I don't have to go to church on Sunday. They're
Yeah,
like, wow.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So Sam, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
So it seems like you're having some type of a confliction when it comes to religion in Nigeria. Is that what I'm sensing here?
Yes, I am. Like I told you, like I mentioned earlier, we're very religious people. And then when you say religion is not actually part of our culture, I think I would say it does. Like technically now, you'd find like I told you, to find more religious people in Nigeria. We've accepted that culture. I think these guys brought it here, and then we embraced it like who climb thinker, no doubt. Like when you have issues with anybody, it's always religion, 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 religion. It's like you know what we're going through here with terrorism and all that. It's still religion. Where you see folks wake up one morning and say, yes, we don't want to accept Western education and all that, and then there's Boko Haram, killings and all that. So I think basically this is what we face here. And then that's why I brought it up to say, okay, then what if I travel out? Because what statistics we saw at some point was that when we have Nigerians travel out, we observe that they become less religious. Like you don't see them pray about things they can do themselves. Like here, like every little thing you have any little issue, it's always God, do this for me, God. Like it's always about religion. It's always about God,
Mm.
God, God. Yeah, you get the point. So, and then when you see most of them, because I haven't traveled out before, like when you see them leave, they become less religious. Like they don't when they don't advise you to go pray, they prefer solutions to you. I can actually bring it down to say health when you have health related issues. In Nigeria here, you have people who tell you to go and pray over maybe stuff like elephantiasis, maybe stuff that can be diagnosed maybe in the Western world and it will be treated like normally and all that. But sometimes here you'll be asked to fast, pray, and do all that stuff just to get healing. So that's my point about if reacting to what Lucky said, if I leave Nigeria and then out there, I understand that okay, this can actually be solved. Diabetes can actually be treated or be managed and not pray over it. And then I strongly say, or I would say it's not a culture in me because like that religion is not a culture. Is it proper to drop it and then okay move on with what I've just seen there? Is it normal? That's why I asked that question. And then I appreciate the answers I got from you. I appreciate Joanne and Ben. I appreciate.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I do hear your concern. To be honest, from my perspective, I don't think a lot of Nigerians, or at least Africans, but at least Nigerians, I don't think they become less religious when they move to, let's say they're abroad. Me personally, there's still a lot of praying going on. There's still a lot of praying and fasting. Jesus this, Jesus that, and there's no shade, no disrespect to
Yeah.
those people at all. Do you?
Yeah.
Not a problem. But I also feel
Be-
like part of you want to
because
say something, Joe?
Ben, yeah, because you know what, like from the minute we grow up, like it's the one thing they manipulate us with. Like,
Yes.
oh, if you do something wrong or something wrong happens to you, it's like, yeah, because you've wronged God. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you're a
exactly.
disobedient person to
Yeah.
God, so there's that manipulation. And it once you go out of your own country, it makes you really hate religion because you realize
Mm.
like, oh wow, what I have been taught to know or to believe is not what it is. Because there you're not being told that you need to pay tithe so that you get more money. When you go to the
Mm-hmm.
West, you're like, you need to work hard to actually get that money. But here,
Mm-hmm.
we're still being told you need to give tithe, you need to give 10% of your income for you to get even more. They're not telling you that 10% invest and get more. So there's a lot of manipulation when it comes to religion. And that's why I think when people go out of their countries, they just become less religious.
Mm-hmm.
Can I chip in on the religion part?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I feel like just with what Joe just said, religion has really been used to, I don't know, brainwash or take away the ability to think for yourself. For like most Africans, it has, in a way, also become a business because what you see is somebody, they just get a little bit of money. There they go, they get a tent, they get a few microphones, few speakers, and then they're starting a church. And they have people coming in, giving in their money, and they're expecting to get blessings. And I think a part of this, it's like you have more people focusing on religion. You have more people opening churches than opening businesses or opening non-profit organizations that are there to help kids in the community. And I think for me, that is one disadvantage that we are having as Africans, that there is a really huge focus on religion, and that prevents us from focusing on other things that can help us prosper. And like another thing that a part of me is not happy with religion in, and this focuses on Christianity, especially with South Africa. You look at how did Christianity arrive to South Africa, and it takes you back to colonization, and it was used for like, I think there's a quote about, if you want to change people's culture, change their religion. And for Southern Africans, what I realize is, we have left our indigenous traditions. My dad is a traditional healer, but you will find a lot of people are like, we don't need traditional healers. Traditional healers practice witchcraft or like voodoo and things.
Yes.
And that, to be honest, is a stigma, that's created about our own indigenous people. And I'm not religious at all. And I've said this to like even my own parent, my own family members, that I would rather believe in voodoo and everything than be a Christian, because to me, you know that's where my people start from. So it is interesting to see how much a lot of Africans will object Western ideas, but then still they will accept religion like Christianity or something like that. But I'm not saying Christianity is bad. I've met a lot of
Yeah, of
awesome,
course not.
and I think it's just a matter of realizing that you don't have to leave behind, where you come from, or despise your ancestors or anything like that.
I agree with both of you, Lucky and Joe, and thank you, Lucky, for pointing out something that I want to discuss later on, African spirituality. But like I said, I don't think the problem is religion or Christianity or whatever it is that you practice out there. I'm not religious. I don't go to church. That's not my thing. I used to be religious. I used to be super religious, read the Bible every day, memorized so many passages in the Bible. It was more so like a cultural norm back in Nigeria until I just chose to distance myself from that and for my own personal reasons. And I don't have any problems with people who are religious necessarily, as long as you're not overly and obnoxiously religious. I respect religion for what it actually offers for people who use religion right. I really actually do respect it. However, my issue with religion, though, especially the way it's being ran in Africa, and I'm pretty sure not just in Africa, other parts of the world, is the lack of distinction between religion and spirituality. I believe that spirituality is more so like an individual thing, like your way to project yourself into the world. And like I've mentioned in a lot of my podcasts, I believe that people are made of three things: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. Just like every single one of us on this discussion right now literally look different physically, our mentalities are also different, just like our spirits are also different. So your way to connect spiritually is going to be different from somebody else's way of connecting spiritually, because we're different, distinct people. Just like my mentality is different from Joe's, which is different from Sam's, which is different from Lucky's, and which is different from Wisdom's. Just like my physical is very difficult. They're different from every single one of us. But unfortunately, my opinion though is I feel like the impact of religion in Africa is as a direct result of white supremacy. That's just my opinion anyway, and you can feel free to counteract that, no problem. But I think that it was a tool of manipulation that the Europeans used on Africans to kind of dumb us down, basically telling us, pray right now. When you die, your heaven comes, your goodness comes. But right now, when you suffer, it's okay to suffer. But while you're praying, I'm going to take your resources, enslave your people, take them to my country to build my own heaven, because I believe that my heaven is right now. That is just the way I'm able to compartmentalize it. And I understand that for a lot of Africans, especially in Nigeria, it becomes an endurance thing, because there's really not a whole lot of opportunities in Nigeria, for example, for an average Nigerian to kind of go against that, as opposed to in the West. Like say somebody from Nigeria who moves to America, they're still very religious, but if they need money, more than likely they'll just go to college. They'll go apply for jobs, because there are job applications out there, there are job opportunities out there, there are colleges out there. The opportunities are there. They will pray about it, because that's just also a cultural thing that they brought from their country, right? But they'll also be more pragmatic about it, more proactive about it, because opportunities do exist. But for the average Nigerian, or at least the lower income class Nigerians who don't have those opportunities, who don't have any type of outlets whatsoever. Nobody's hiring you. Nobody gives a crap about your existence in your little village in Nigeria. The only other option you have is to pray about it, because it now becomes a thing of endearment, and it becomes very personal for you because you don't have an outlet. So I could totally understand it. But again, I think it's just the lack of distinction between spirituality and religion. And if you're able to tap into spirituality, which I really recommend that everybody tunes their hearts into spirituality, because I think it's a beautiful thing. And if you don't, I totally respect it. I get it, no problem. But if you're able to tune yourself into spirituality, your mentality will be different, and you realize that you actually don't need religion to be able to reach that spirituality. I believe religion is a medium through which you can reach spirituality, but not the only medium. And the way I look at it is, religion is sort of like a gym, you know, um, and spirituality is sort of like the good health you're supposed to get out of the gym. A lot of people who go to the gym don't actually achieve good health, right? Just like some people who go to the gym actually do achieve good health. But the gym is not the only medium through which you can achieve good health. You can just go to the park. You can just eat right. You can just exercise in your bedroom, and you're still able to attain good health, better than somebody who goes to the gym every day. That person who goes to the gym every day, you don't know what kind of brokenness that they have, mental health problems, blood work problems, broken bones, and whatever it is that they're dealing with. You're actually much healthier than that person. The same thing too when it comes to religion and spirituality. A lot of times, a lot of people in Africa go to churches, worship religion so diligently, but they're not able to tap into that spirituality, and as a result, the mentalities perpetuate the same problems that keep going on in Africa, and that is the problem. That is a problem on its own. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the funny thing about this, Ben, is that um most people don't even know the difference between Christianity and spirituality. If you tell them about spirituality, they think you're talking about devil worshipping or some sort of thing.
Yes.
And I would say, personally, for me, for the longest time when I was a kid, I thought Jesus was like some white dude with golden hair, and and that's the same story across different countries in Africa. And up to now, you go to the village, there's some villages you go to, and you ask small kids, or you ask even grown-ups, like, who do you think Jesus looks like? And they will tell you it's just this white dude with
Mhm.
long blonde hair. And that just goes to show how far behind we are from reaching to a point where we can actively say, like, yeah, me, I am spiritual and I'm not Christian, or I'm
and
spiritual, I'm not Muslim. So
And you're absolutely right. And that's why I say that religion is a tool of manipulation, and a direct result of white supremacy. Because
yeah.
when it comes to spirituality, we have our own spirituality, African spirituality. Like prior to the Europeans coming to our countries, or our individual countries, and our continent at large, we have our own things. We have the medicine men and women. We have the herbalists. We have the spiritual men and women. We had all those things, and they worked for us for centuries. prior to these people coming. Yes, we didn't have the skyscrapers, the flashy cars, all the things that we worship today on social media. We didn't have that, but we had our own sense of identities. We had our own sense of community. And, as a result of white supremacy, the colonial masters came to our countries and basically brainwashed us to look down on our own. Anything spiritual, African spiritual sounding, resembling, it's considered evil. Is looked down on unless you're worshiping the white Jesus, which really Jesus is not a white man. Jesus is from Palestine, and
Yeah.
Palestinians are darker skinned. But
Yeah.
it's still that mentality of white is better. The closer you are to whiteness, the more right you are. And unfortunately, this is a global phenomenon. It's a pandemic on its own, but specifically in Africa, I think is really bad. And I feel like, from my perspective, I feel like religion, or at least over religiousness, has kind of pacified the average African, has made us mentally lazy. And I don't mean like literally lazy. It kind of, our fight or flight doesn't kick in anymore. Instead of being more proactive as to our true problems, because there's so much wrong with Africa, just like there's a lot of beauties in Africa, but let's keep it real. There's a lot wrong with Africa. But when we hit those,
yeah, but Ben, it's not. I don't think it's entirely. I don't think it's 100% on us, because even if you look at the Western depiction of African spirituality, it's some voodoo worshipping, weird things, black magic and sort of thing.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry. That's why I wanted to. Sorry, Joanne. That's why I wanted to ask. I wanted I wanted you both to explain more about your concept of spirituality. Like, if you don't believe in, is it still God you believe in? Because aside, if we say we don't believe in, like, you don't believe in religion, and then the white man gave us and Bible and all that, Jesus and everything. So what's your concept of spirituality? Like, what do you believe in then? Is it okay? Like what Joanne was about saying now? Is it the voodoo stuff, the black magic, the, like, we might place the Amadionha, the idol worshiping and all that? So what's your concept of spirituality?
I think the voodoo you're talking about is.
I want to react to what Sam said now.
Oh, Wisdom, can you please introduce yourself? Because we know you've been having issues with your mic.
Exactly. I've been having technical issues, but I'm glad I'm with you now. My name is Wisdom. I'm from the southeastern part of Nigeria. I'm from Nigeria too. Where Sam is from. So I'm from a tribe, a hardworking tribe, that loves traveling to different countries. I was meant to know that there are people from the discussion, Kenya. If you make your researches, you see that there are people from my tribe in your place too. Travel a lot. So that's one thing I'm so proud about my tribe. I think that's enough introduction. Then adding to what Sam said, I had when Sam was mistaking Christianity to being our culture. We have our own, just like you said, Ben, we have our own traditional culture, and with regard to spirituality, all this African spirituality, whatever they believe, still boils down to having this superior being, whether in heaven, whether somewhere else. You call him you call him whatever. I just feel they are still the same thing. They are still the same God. They're serving the same God in different languages, there's no how we will understand God in his totality as humans. So that somebody is not a Christian doesn't mean the person is not serving God. And you don't need to believe in Jesus. You don't need to be attending the churches, clapping hands and singing songs for you to believe in God. So we are worshiping the same God in different languages, in our own different understanding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wisdom. And I do agree with you. Unfortunately, a lot of people back in Nigeria don't necessarily see it like that. The reason why you have this mentality because you have a very enlightened, you're very aware, you're very educated, and you're so well traveled. The average Nigerian doesn't see it like that, and they're quick to shut you down when you basically challenge that norm in their country, in their region, and they see you as an outcast. And unfortunately, in a community based society like Nigeria, that could be quite detrimental to you because you can get ostracized socially and even professionally, legally, actually, for not conforming to the status quo. And Lucky, you've been raising your hand for a while. Could you please pitch in?
Oh, I was actually raising my hand from last time. But I also say with religion, what I've realized is that, in it making us less proactive, what happens is a lot of issues get hidden away. Maybe somebody is not doing well at school and what they're told, oh, keep on praying, 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 go to church, give more money, instead of like, hey, maybe you should, try to study harder or find a different way to study, or get an advisor to help you out with your academics. And it has also been used to cover up mental health issues. It's not very easy to go out and talk about, oh, I'm having this kind of situation. And you also like have people who are having financial issues. Maybe you just cannot come up with a budget. You go to the church, they're telling you, oh, it's because someone in your family is doing this, so you have to give more money to the church and stuff like that. So I think some things are just like, it's a lack of technical skills, but then instead of trying to solve that problem, we just take it and we say, oh, it's because of religion, and I think, it just goes back to how the thing with, white supremacy and trying to, get Africans to be not involved in, the politics and the economy and the education of their country.
Yeah, thank you, Lucky. I totally do agree with you. I believe the big problem here is white supremacy. I believe white supremacy basically looked down on African spirituality and continues to do so through Western media. Unfortunately, like when you watch American movies, for example, they're practicing voodoo, black magic, witchcraft, and it's depicted in a very, very demonic, very dark, very negative way, and we consume these things, we consume it, we enjoy these movies, we love horror movies, but it subconsciously, it kind of reinforces that negativity of what African religion is all about, but that's not necessarily true though. And as a result, you have people back in Africa who also perpetuate that by thinking that this is what African spirituality is, without realizing that this is fallacy. This is just a tool of manipulation. And I believe this is why Beyonce made her album that she created, I think a year or 2 years ago, Black is King, where she was basically talking about African spirituality. Basically, I remember one of the videos that she made, one of the lyrics said, "Find your way back home." And in my opinion, she's trying to call the black race back to before the impurity from the colonial masters, because prior to that, we were our own distinct humans. We were soulful people. We were able to communicate and commune to the gods and the spirits in the universe and things like that in our own way that suits our tradition, our culture, our individualities perfectly before somebody else came in and told us that we were doing it right. And then they give us theirs, that they created for themselves that works for them but don't work for us. And white supremacy also goes much deeper because it's not just religion. White supremacy, the closer you are to whiteness, the better your life is. And the further you are from whiteness, the not so good your life is. And that is continuously perpetuated on a global arena as to why Black people are still overlooked, especially Africans are still overlooked till today. So I just think religion is one of those the facets through which white supremacy is being manifested. Um, does anyone want to chip into that before we discuss something else? And Sam, I don't know if that answered your question. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I just wanted to understand your the concept or idea. When I said religion was a culture, it's an accepted practice. Like this is what we do. Like you're born into, like rightly mentioned, you're born into a family. You're quickly introduced to religion. It becomes part of you. Like if you're not careful, like when you grow up, your instincts kicking, and then you decide, okay, this is not what I want to do. This is not. Maybe you understand the concept, and then you're like, this is not what I want to do. This is not the kind of practice I want to grow up with and all that. Then you decide to leave. But then when I wanted to understand what you meant, I think I told you one time recently I had this reawakening. I had doubts, and I had to call you on phone and then ask you
Hmm.
what you felt, yeah, about religion. You believe in Jesus Christ, you believe in all that, and then you told me about spirituality. So I wanted to get the point. If I want to practice spirituality, does it mean I have to go back to before the Westerners brought religion to us, and then when I practice my black magic and all that, does it really show? Is it spirituality, or just the definition of spirituality is just okay? I believe in God, and I believe that is a being upstairs there, and then I just
Hmm.
believe in Him, and then I pray to Him, I worship Him. That's what I wanted to. That's the decision I wanted to get, and then so that people outside within that might listen would understand what you actually mean by okay, I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. I'm just more spiritual. Okay, my spirituality is I believe in someone up there, and then I pray to him every morning. I don't go to church. This is just how I live my life. That's just what I wanted us to point out. I wasn't having a doubt about the baby's different and all that. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about this in depth in subsequent episodes, or you and I, we could talk about it one on one about spirituality and African spirituality. No problem. But I do want to move on to talk about opportunity. I do want to move on to talk about opportunities in Africa, and I want this to be as very honest and raw as possible. A lot of times, I've, like I said, I lived in Nigeria, and some of the people I lived with in Nigeria, or at least when I was a kid back in Nigeria, I'm still in touch with them, and I'm seeing like they're being very honest with me behind the scenes as to some of the realities, the harsh realities of opportunities in Nigeria, like education opportunities, social opportunities. Employment opportunities. I do want us to talk about this in a very realistic and raw manner as to some of the harsh realities when it comes to opportunities in Africa, or at least in your region. Like, what is the opportunities like in your country? Job opportunities? Is it a realistic path of going to school? Education system, does it serve you right? You go to school, graduate, find a job. Does it serve you well as the system claims to?
Okay, so this is like individual, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so let me just go ahead and say this. Personally, I feel like for my country right now, one, it has to do with uh, social class, in the sense that the government says that there is free education, but when you think about it, it's not really free in the sense that people think that it is, right? And so if they claim that they're giving free education and they're not, it means that there's a chunk of people that are being, they don't they're being like left behind, right? So that already in itself, um they aren't like you like you're few steps behind when it comes to any like opportunities that are there, right? um Another thing is that there's a lot of corruption, and it's not just Kenya, it's in very many countries in Africa. There's a lot of corruption, whereby even if there are opportunities, if I have the money to pay for them, then I get a certain opportunity before someone else does, whether I am less qualified or I'm more qualified than them. So I feel like for me and where I come from, I would say it's between two things. It's between you're either so lucky that you get these opportunities, or you just your financial background allows you to get certain opportunities. Yeah, that's that.
And is the job market realistic in your country though? Like if you were to go through this school system, the education system in Kenya, is there like like a realistic opportunity for you to be employed and actually be able to utilize your education in your country?
I would say it's 20% is realistic, 80% is not realistic, because there are a lot of people with degrees and masters and PhDs that are still, jobless, or they're roasting maize by the roadside, or they're boiling eggs to sell on they're selling secondhand clothes. There are a lot of people who have gone through the system, and uh, they've gone to universities or colleges, and they have attained higher level learning, and they have degrees, and they have the papers to show, and they have the expertise, but they're still not getting the job. So I'd say 20% is realistic, but 80% is not realistic.
So would you then say that the education system in your country does not serve the
No,
average Kenyan?
absolutely not. It does not.
Okay, so but are there still people who are actively pursuing education in Kenya? Like every
Yeah,
year, people are still going to
yeah,
college, and
we're still doing it. We're still hoping for the best, and you know, you're
so,
lucky if you get it. You're lucky if you don't.
so basically, Joe, to reiterate, so you basically said that realistically, the education system in Kenya does not work. It does not work for the average Kenyan because
No.
20% um, fruitful and 80% futile. So
Yeah.
my question is, if it does not work, and majority of people have that consensus that it does not work, why do people blindly still pursue education in Kenya, knowing fully well that it does not work? Is there a reason behind that? If you could kind of share with us.
Yeah, we don't have any other option. You're just, you dealt with that hand, you just have to take it.
But doesn't that pacify you from, or at least the average Kenyan pacify you from seeking alternative options, like like more so realistic opportunities that could actually work in your country? For example, sales, business skills that are lacking in Africa. I feel like there may be a lot of opportunities, untapped opportunities in Africa, but unfortunately, a lot of people are going through the the Western system. Like go to school, go to middle school, primary school, secondary school, college, grad school, and then get employment. And realistically, from what I'm hearing from you and from what I've heard from a lot of Nigerians, it does not work. So why keep joining that? Why keep maintaining that? Why keep reinforcing that, knowing fully well that it doesn't work, instead of possibly looking into other opportunities in Africa that could be possibly tapped into?
Well, I guess also it's just part of life. You're born, you go to school, whether you like it or not. And I think right now it's changing a little bit, where we people actually have the chance to explore alternative ways of earning a living. So it's changing in the sense that you don't really like, it's not like instilled in you that you have to go to school. When I was in school, like it was, you're either a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer. There's nothing else that you can
Hmm.
become, right? And so there was an age where there are too many doctors, too many engineers, too many lawyers, and the rest of us are just like kind of like somewhere in between. And you're like, oh, so what do we do? Because we didn't qualify to be, that what which was deemed to be the measure of success, right? So in a way, life is changing, and people are looking for alternative ways to earn a living, despite having gone through school to do whatever courses they have. But I still think the education system does not favor the average Kenyan.
Is there also a fear of judgment, a fear of being looked down upon if you don't go to school, if you don't, do what everybody else is doing, being a doctor, being an engineer, being a nurse, whatever it is, is there a stigma attached to not following that path as opposed to following a skill set, doing some type of manual labor? Because I know the same thing happens here in America. As a matter of fact, I know some people who have skill sets, who have um, blue collar jobs, that they make more money than some people who are actually employed and have degrees and even grad school degrees. Is there some type of stigma, some type of judgment associated with that? Perhaps that's an
Yeah,
incentive.
yeah, yes, and because I can be like a plumber in America, and I can earn so much, but a plumber here can get you. cannot help you get by, right? So you can't stand in front of people and be like, oh yeah, I'm a plumber. Like people will be like, okay, so now what do? We clap for you or what? You're considered as a failure.
Okay.
So yeah, so but like I've said, that way of thinking is slowly changing, and we're getting into a culture where even me as a female, I can choose to become a carpenter, and I can choose to make furniture, and I can earn a living out of that. So yeah, I wouldn't say that all of it is bad.
Hmm.
Yeah, things are changing, and they're changing for the better.
Okay. So is it fair to say that the average Kenyan has Western education, so to speak, has a
Yes.
degree, but
uh,
may not necessarily be practicing in that field? They're doing something else on the
yes.
side, like let's say some type of side hustle to survive, but they still have a degree on the side, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Would you say that there's some type of benefit from that degree though, even though they may not necessarily be practicing with it,
No, no, not really.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Sam, do you have something to pitch in from a Nigerian perspective?
Yeah, about opportunities in Nigeria. Yes,
Yes.
I feel uh, I feel the government, like aside education, like basically after going to school, you're out there looking for a job, and like according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, we have about 7.6% of unemployed people, and they are basically youths. We have a high number of youth roaming the streets after school with certificates, looking for jobs. The system frustrates you, and then when we say we want to probably dump our certificates and maybe start up a business, small scale business to probably help ourselves out, the system also frustrates you. You have exorbitant rates of registering your business in Nigeria here. I think there was one we actually did recently. We came up with an idea of doing opening a delivery service where we buy a motorbike and we kind of take orders and deliver. What the government did was come out with prices that are too higher, way too higher than what you actually use in starting the business. Like you can own two bikes for say 300,000 naira here. The government placed the registration to be around 150, 160,000 for a small scale business. So when you see youth who are tired of going around looking for jobs that are not there, and the jobs that are there, people that normally get those jobs are those that have the connections, those are related to government officials, like actually stay in Abuja in Nigeria. And I have first-hand experience of how this whole stuff works. That you keep roaming around the street, you don't get these jobs. And since Abuja is the capital of Nigeria, you have kids of senators, House of Representative members, chairmen of parastatals, and they get these jobs even before. Like you don't get the announcement that some offices you don't even get the announcement of vacancies. Like these places are already filled up by relations, children of these big people. So it's actually very difficult for a young person having graduated from university. You're going out there, even if you make we have first class guys that do minimal, very low class jobs. People that finish very well in university, scientists that finish very well in university are still going around looking for jobs that should be available to them, but it's not. So and then when you fall back to say creating a business to further push yourself out there, the system still kind of frustrates you. You have rates that are levies that are not right. You're in a shop, for instance, you have a shop, you're trying to sell, you see the area council tax force come, they come there like they'll be like, okay, have you paid for this? Have you paid for that? At the end of the day, you see that most of the monies you're making is still going back to the government, and you have nothing to show for it. So it's actually a bad one here, and that's the reality we're facing here. It's actually a bad one, and the only system kind of that has been paying off little recently is the apprenticeship business, the sector of you serving someone. Like even as a graduate, like I have friends who after school had to go back to learning skills, to learning how to repair cars, how to do this and that, and then at the end of the day, they get paid off or settled by the masters. They will help open another new shop for them. But depending on the government for these opportunities or waiting on for someone to come from anywhere to help you out. This is the reality we have in Nigeria. That's why we have extreme poverty, like especially in the north, which is where I am actually now. That's why we have this poverty, this high rate of poverty here, because the opportunities are not there. And then you see foreign expats. You see someone who might be a plumber in China coming here and getting the job, doing something we ourselves can do here very well. Like take for instance, I actually have this idea about waste management, and which is actually one of a sector I feel is untapped here, like to how to manage waste and all that. But you see, the companies currently managing this whole stuff here are foreign companies. These are stuff we can do on our own, and the government supports these people. You see them, they give them the opportunity, they give them the leverage, they give them the security. Maybe somebody you say is an honorary guy from China or from Turkey, from anywhere. Once he's a white guy, he has every little thing, the provisions, everything he wants. He'll get it, and then the government gives him free hand to run that business. That's part of the stuff we're facing here. And then you recently we had this border closure and all that, and it affected most of the unemployed people here. And it sound very funny, like to know that even while we had this border closed, while business was not moving very well, we still had instances of rich men still having their products imported. Like the border wasn't closed for some set of people, but it was closed for you, the ordinary guy, the ordinary woman there trying to make a living. Like the opportunities here, because of the system, it's kind of limited or it's kind of caged that you might not be able to access this sort of stuff. So that's part of the problems we are facing here. It's not like we have a lot of untapped opportunities here, but the system frustrates you. That's just it.
So from your perspective, it's not that the opportunities are not there. There's so many opportunities in Nigeria. It's just that those opportunities are limited to certain groups of people.
A lot of opportunities are out here. Like we have a lot of opportunities out here, but it's just limited to a certain set of people. Like these are the people that control the economy. Because set of people that have this leverage to do whatever they want, and you, the average Nigerian, you have nothing. You have
So, and
nothing
you
except you're from this class. Yeah.
and you're saying a lot of these opportunities are available to foreign expats.
Yeah, a lot of these opportunities are available to foreign experts. Like I gave you instances. You see, the government will prefer to invite an expatriate, like someone from say China, who is actually a plumber. That you can also do the kind of job he does here. Like you can offer your expertise, you can offer your ideas on certain projects. But the government will prefer invite. You know why they do this stuff is they get the like if they were supposed to pay you, say you were supposed to be paid say 200,000 naira, the
Mhm.
government doubles it, and then they,
Wow.
they also gain from it. Yeah, they also gain from it. Say that they're supposed to pay the expert, they're supposed to pay him say the same 200,000 naira. What is going to be on the budget is going to be about 400,000, and then because it's a white man coming in, the mentality there is, oh, okay, yeah, it's actually true. We actually spend social resources to invite these guys down here. And
Mhm.
then like if you see the security, the protection, the and you know what they do is they actually use this our guys, they use the Nigerian guys to do the job. They just stand there and direct you and tell this what to do, and these guys actually know what to do. So the opportunities we have are given out to foreign experts. Like we have the strong ties with China currently in Nigeria. So these opportunities are given handed over to these guys, and then we have nothing at the end of the day. The youth keep roaming around the streets looking for jobs.
But why do you think that is though? And anybody feel free to pitch in on that. Why is it that we prefer foreign investment, foreign expats, if we actually willing to spend more money inviting them here, offering security and paying them double, if not even triple, of what we would pay a local person to get the same job done, and also create an opportunity for your own person? Why is that? Somebody please answer that.
I would say
Yeah.
it's also what Sam said, that the government stands to gain. Like they can corrupt the numbers and say we're giving this person this certain figure when they're not. And also we buy into so much Western stuff that we in ourselves, like we don't believe that we are capable, or there's lack of faith that you should think that, oh, if this person is from this place, they know better than someone who's from your hometown, and
Mm.
they have done the same course. So yeah, I would say it's two things. One, because the government, there's something the government stands to gain, and two, it's because we've just bought into too much into the Western culture, that we don't think that we ourselves, like, or our people, are capable of doing the same job and to do it better.
Can you please elaborate more on the government standing to gain? Because from my perspective, unless I'm missing something, the government is losing more because they're paying way more money to invite the person, make them feel accommodated, cared for, and also paying them for their labor, which is significantly more than they would spend on a local. So can you please elaborate how so the government may gain from that?
I would say that one thing that I don't know what contracts they do with, because we have the same problem that Sam is saying, that we also have Chinese influence here, and so we don't know what kind of contracts our government have with the Chinese, because even if you look at our we have the railway gauge line that they built. Most of the stations are written in English and Swahili and Chinese, and if you think about it, we really don't have that big percentage of Chinese people living here for them to have things written in like the stations written in Chinese. So I don't know what kind of contract that our government signs with certain and with different Western countries, but also why I said it's the government stands to gain is, why should I take, like, say, $2,000 from a local when I can bag like $10,000, right? So if you employ a local person, you're going to underpay them, and you can't claim that, oh, this person has been paid this much. But when you employ someone like, say, like a white person or a Chinese person, you can say that, oh, I've paid this person this amount, and people won't really bat an eye, because they're like, oh, they're foreigners, and
Yeah,
well, it makes sense
exactly.
why they're being paid this.
Yeah, I would like to contribute. I would like to respond to your question. These white people, they actually understand the African leaders very well. They understand the African leaders. They understand how selfish the African leaders are.
Mm. Continue. Hello. Uh-oh.
Uh,
I, I think you're making a good point. Go ahead, Lucky.
So for me, I feel contractors, because we have local contractors, we have very good local contractors that can do the railway, but they will always prefer to go to China.
yes, I was gonna say, I think the issue with having African governments relying more on services from outside countries, or countries outside the continent, I think it just goes back. This has already been mentioned. There is a huge value that is put on goods that are written, made in the US, made in China, made in the UK, and goods that are written, made in Tanzania or made in South Africa. And I think, in a way, like local businesses are not being supported by most of our leaders. And I do understand that in some cases it might have to do with laws or bindings and stuff like that that they have with other countries. But I do believe that the local market is not being supported very well. And that is something that our leaders need to really push forward to, by making, products from outside countries to be more expensive, or by taxing them higher amounts so that people are pushed to move towards the local market. Because what is the use for getting skills on how to make clothes when you know that somebody's just gonna go and buy a Nike or an Adidas t-shirt,
Mhm.
So that is a disadvantage that we have. And I think we really need, like, in order for the people to rise and show their skills, the government has to show support for them. You have a lot
Mhm.
of trying out business ideas, but those businesses cannot succeed because they're not competing with businesses that are local. They're competing with multi-billion businesses that are international. So that really puts the African entrepreneur at a disadvantage, and they just cannot do anything.
And I don't want to sound ignorant at all, but are there people who are actively and diligently holding the leaders accountable for this? Because obviously this is not working, and it's very sad. It's very selfish that you would prefer a foreigner over your own person. And like Wisdom was saying before he got cut off, we would prefer to go to somebody in China, because we believe that we have their product is better than ours, but which is not necessarily true though, because Chinese or made in China merchandise is not as quality as something maybe in America, and it's not just because it's coming from America anyway, but made in China has that reputation of not having the best quality. And you're actually more likely to find something of a higher quality in Nigeria, especially if you support your own people. Like if you were support a business in Nigeria, more than likely they can actually produce something that is of a better quality than a made in China product, and it will still be significantly cheaper than purchasing something from China, because it's local and you don't have to pay the exchange taxes, the foreign taxes, the shipping, import, and all that stuff. And at the same time, too, you're supporting your own people. So it's quite unfortunate. But my question is, are there people who are actually actively holding these people accountable, like doing something about it and actually being serious about it, being proactive about it? I know Nigeria had the protest, the NSARS protest a few months ago, but when it comes to opportunities, the disparity in education system, opportunities and the population of the communities in our individual countries, what is being done actively and being realistically and harshly done to shift things?
Ben, I feel this corruption is actually deep rooted in our systems and in mostly our leaders. Let me give you an instance. We have an indigenous Nigerian from the southeast that manufactures cars. You see, the government would prefer to import cars. You see, the politicians in Nigeria would prefer to import foreign cars other than to patronize him. You know why? I feel, and which is the way I look at it. I feel these guys stand to gain more. Like just like Joan pointed out the other time. Like when you see a white guy doing this job, and then this is where we have issues. Well, technically, most people might not question him. They might believe this guy is more experienced. This guy has the technical know-how. This guy can do this job efficiently. And then when you say this guy is paid 400 billion, the average Nigerian would simply buy it because if you employ a black guy there and say, okay, I'm paying this guy 400 billion, they'll be like, why are you paying him 400 billion? What, like, people will question what's actually happening. Like, people will be like, why are you paying him 400 million for this job, for this same job? But once it's a white guy, once it's somebody of color that comes in, then everybody says, people don't question what's actually happening. And then when you say holding these guys accountable, I think we're in Nigeria here we're blinded by sentiment. We prefer to do tribalistic politics. You have people from this area who feel they're marginalized coming out to shout, we want this, we want this, we want you to support us. We're rice farmers. Why are you making rice difficult to get? We can do this. We're not actually manufacture this. Why are you importing rice? We have this or another. And then you have people from certain parts of the country telling you, no, we love what this guy is doing. This is the president or the governor. We like what this guy is doing and we're supporting him. So you're out there, like you rightly mentioned the NSAS protest. Like I mentioned before, I'm in Abuja, and then if you saw what happened on that day, I was actually lucky because I was driving. I was actually lucky I wasn't there. lynched by the mob. You see, when people come out to protest against bad governance, you see certain people from certain parts being sponsored by the government coming to counter that protest. So when you say you're coming out, we have the non-governmental organization coming out to protest. You have the SERAP, the ones that hold government accountability and all that. When they come out to question the government policies, to question what these guys are doing, why would you do something? Like we had issues of what do you call this stuff, handing over your territory to China. So we had issues about it recently. Trying to remember the name, where we had a clause about China coming to support us with railway, and here we're ceding our. I'm trying to remember the word now. Like you ceding your, is it authority or so? Like the government had to come out and explain. Like when we were asking questions, like why would you have that kind of clause? Why would you have that kind of clause in our in the agreement? And they were explaining that if Nigeria was not able to pay China from so time to so time, China would take over that venture. Say it's railway, China will take over that railway and then try to make their own money and pay themselves. You get what I'm saying? You get. So people came out to question. People came out to question what was happening. But the issue is, like as an individual, you come out and start questioning government. You start asking, holding government accountable. You are not doing this right. You're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. You have certain pro-government. I think people come out to support the government, either out of sentiment or either they are paid to do this stuff. You see, we have activists. We had an experience last year. We had certain activities we believed in. Like a lot of us believed in him, and then he was always coming out to question the government. All of a sudden, he went mute. It was later when stuff came out on the news that okay, this guy was actually paid about 100 million, and then he took it and went back and stopped criticizing the government. So, and then we have the National Assembly, comprising of the Senate and the House of Representatives, that should question the government. But these institutions are controlled by the same party that elected, that actually sponsored, that has the president there. So you can't actually move for, okay, say you're coming out, you're telling the president want to hold you accountable. Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing this? You're immediately shut down. So nobody holds it, and the Nigerian government, like everybody knows it, the Nigerian president controls a lot of power, a lot of authorities. Like he has the power to do this and do that. Like he has absolute power. So it's actually kind of, because of the system, the institutions, it's actually kind of difficult to shut him down. So you have the Senate president, you have the House of Representatives, the Speaker, all being his party members, all loyal supporters. So who questions him? That's the point. And then when you question him, you don't get the feedback. You keep shouting and shouting and shouting and making endless protests. And then at the end of the day, you have people that will come and attack you. So it's actually a deep root stuff. It's actually very difficult here. Thank you very much.
I do have, thank you very much for sharing that. But I do have two questions. The first one is, you did mention that a lot of times when a person in Nigeria, possibly other parts of Africa, when we see a white person working and getting paid millions, we don't question it. We basically automatically assume that, yeah, they deserve it, because he's white or they're Chinese or whatever it is, Would you say that is also a reflection, even though it's white supremacy, would you also say that is a reflection of Black inferiority? Would you say that some of us, we feel inferior? And I don't want to generalize, collectively generalize that Africans feel inferior of their Blackness, but would you say that there is a possibility that we Black people in Africa, we perpetuate that white supremacy by embodying the mentality of Black inferiority? Would you agree with that?
Yes, Ben, I think I would agree with that. Let me give you an instance also. In 2012, I actually worked for Innocent, and we had these guys from China in the company, in the industry there. But you see, what we actually came to do was what our Black guys, our mechanical engineers, were actually doing. Like at some point, they were just standing there, supervising, just looking at you, doing your job, and at the end of the day, you see them sitting down and smoking. I spent 1 year there. These guys were apparently doing nothing. But you see, the guy that owns the company, the industry, would rather pay a white guy because he believes he can do the job very well. Even though he knows that you have the experience, he can actually do it. And then bringing it down to to what I mentioned earlier on. Then you're driving past the road, you see white guys that are the one walking on this road, like they're trying to part this road. The average black guy, the average Nigerian, let me bring it down, feels this sense of yeah, fulfillment that it's actually white guys doing this job that actually he'll deliver. He's going to do a very perfect and better job. So it's actually white supremacy. We believe that these guys are far better than us. When we ourselves have these experiences, we have the ability to actually carry out the same function these guys are carrying, but we feel so relaxed having having that hope that okay, this guy is actually the better person for the job. And then so when the government comes out to tell us we're paying this guy for this amount for this job, we don't question it. We're like, yeah, this is white, yeah. And then not knowing that the government is actually using this sort of stuff for politics and corruption, deep-rooted corruption.
And the second thing I wanted to add is, or ask is, so I know that the average Nigerian or African in general may not necessarily have the means and opportunities and privileges to actually actively fight some of these corrupt leaders. Is there a way that people who may have those accesses, those privileges outside of Nigeria, say Africans outside of Africa, but say Africans in diaspora, is there a way that people outside of Africa could actually lend their services, lend their privileges, lend their support, and actually help give the people back on the continent, a voice and a platform to actually be more proactive in fighting these corruptions in Africa? Is that a possibility? Is there an option?
Ben, yeah, there's an option, but what you see, they can actually do little because they're actually outside Nigeria, so it's or outside Africa, so they can only lend their voice. And then like what we had during the NSAS protest, we had a lot of cash donations. They can actually support financially, which they did. Like we had a lot of donations from them. We saw them protest outside Nigeria for bad government. But you see, the issue is when you keep protesting outside the country, lending your own voice, it actually might not affect the government directly or indirectly. In the sense that what we got the other time when Trump was there was Trump banned a lot of politicians from here traveling outside the country. Like I think the concept then was, okay, well, since you've messed up the country, we want to stay there and experience, like go through the discretion you've done already here. I think that's what he did then. So that's the only aspect where we see Nigerians in diaspora where their voice actually, where you see the British government, okay, asking questions about what happened and all that. But then Nigeria is an independent country. So even if they protest outside, even if they lend their voices outside, you don't expect foreign countries to come in and take over, which is not possible. So what they can only do there is what they've been doing recently. You see, because they're also tired. You'd also notice that what we do here is every 5 minutes we call our brothers, our siblings outside Nigeria. We're going through hell, sending money, and we actually do not. Sometimes we don't consider what you guys go through there. But it's because the system is frustrating us. So we believe you are doing well. You have to support us. So when we come out and want to hold the government accountable, you see Nigerians in the diaspora come out. They come out like, okay, we want to support these guys, we want to stop this fight so that things can be better, so that we can have less burdens on us, which they have been doing, which we actually appreciated what they did. Like we had a lot of funds to push through. So we had a lot of cars destroyed during the NSAS protest. We had cash gift to actually repair those cars, give to people. We had people that came out with wheelchairs and all that. So my point is, Ben, they are actually doing their part, but then you don't expect them to actually hold the government to account, because they could listen. Like I told you, the Nigerian government here, like for instance, hold a lot of power. The government at the central, the presidency, the executive arm, they control a lot of power. So what they can do there is lend their voices, stand protest in front of embassies and all that, send money for protest and all that. But then it's still, I think it's those of us that are here, that have this responsibility to hold the government accountable. But we sometimes are blinded by the little stuff we get. Like you see one minute there's a spring up. Let's take for instance, you see Wisdom is out there lending his voice, and then he has a lot of support. And all of a sudden, Wisdom he goes mute. And you're like, what's wrong with
Yeah.
Wisdom? And then you begin to hear, okay, Wisdom was called by the government, and Wisdom was paid such amount of money, and Wisdom is now very comfortable. And then that's the ideology. And then Wisdom is not
Yeah.
going, so Wisdom doesn't come out again to speak up. And then when you even seek for help from foreign activists, they can actually just say a little. They can actually challenge the government, so just say a little. But the government is still very powerful. That's the problem. That's the issue we have.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sam. Joe, do you have something to add to that?
I feel like most of what happens, like I think Kenya and Nigeria are very similar in how things are run and how the systems work and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say one, yes, there are ways that people in the diaspora can help, but they shouldn't assume that how things work where they are works the same way here. Because yeah, you may hold protests in America and they are peaceful, but here you try and the police are going to gun you down or tear gas you, and there's too much violence here. So it's like you need to um like they need to be here to understand how the politics of the whichever country they come from or they're supporting, how the politics there work, how the system works, and how they can customize their involvement to fit that specific place. Yeah,
So
and
basically, to be realistic,
yeah,
as to what would actually work,
yeah,
that may be
yeah,
different from their
yeah,
host country.
yeah. Because I feel
Mhm.
most Africans in the diaspora they quickly forget how things work in Africa, and the whatever idea they have about Africa is very different from what their reality is. And then again, there's also like I feel like sending donations, that it helps in a way, but it doesn't really help, right? In the
Well,
sense that in the sense that in as much as it can help people acquire one, two, three things, it also, you don't really have that sense of that, I have fought tooth and nail to this. And also there's too much corruption. Like, yeah, there are bodies that are trying to, or the bodies that would say that they are working, to, change the political environment in a country, and they're getting donations and all that, but they're not really doing anything. They're just keeping the
mhm.
money for themselves, right? So
Yeah.
you really have to get involved more than just your donations. You have to, if you can physically go there. It's simple. Like people in the diaspora need to be more involved and know that the conversation just does not end, it continues. You need to follow up. You do whatever you can to use the tools that you have been given or you have acquired where you are from, and help people in your country to, you know uh, yeah. Let's just use what you have, and um, know what these people need, and
Hmm.
help them in whatever way you can. Just not donate and sit pretty and wait for
Yeah.
things to change. Yeah.
And a lot of times, to add to that, a lot of times that's the easy part. A lot of people, diasporans who live, say, in America, we sit here comfortably and be like, oh, I'll just donate money or I'll just send money without actually thinking deep about how that donation that you're sending could actually be hurting more than it's helping. And I'm not saying that, not to send donation, not to send money back home. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes that money that you're sending could actually be doing more harm than good. So for diasporans who are actually very passionate, who want to be very involved, who want to be very active on the continent, to take it all the way back to Africa, to move back to Africa, are there realistic opportunities for them as diasporans, the returnees moving back from, say, America, the UK, the West, to move back to Kenya, move back to Nigeria, in order for them to be involved in fighting the corruption, fighting the messed up systems in Africa? Are there realistic opportunities? And is there some type of incentive for these returnees, these diasporans? Because I'm actually really curious. I feel like this is actually the heart of what I'm trying to get out of this episode.
That's really a sensitive one. But I would say yes and no.
Okay.
Um, yes, if you want to do anything that does not involve politics per se, you can succeed because opportunities do exist, and mainly because that, like we mentioned before, like we pay too much respect to education or anything that is made from the West. So you just having that Western education already um, gives you a better chance of getting better opportunities in Africa, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to when if you're looking to change, if you're looking to have to change or if you're looking to fight corruption in that sense, then I would say no, because the country will be too harsh very quickly, and you'll soon pack up and go back to where you came from,
Yeah.
and and vow never to come back again.
So I guess my curiosity, and I hear what you're saying. I guess my curiosity is, how can we collectively fight what's going on in Africa? Collectively, people in Africa, people on the continent, and people in the diaspora. How can we? Because I understand your concern, Joe. Fighting corruption is not one man thing, and
No.
sometimes, and realistically, you're not going to be the only one. You're not going to completely get rid of corruption in your country. It's just impossible. Even here in America, there's corruption. In America, is supposed to be one of the elite. You can't get rid of human behavior because it will still be. But should we all comfortably just fold our arms and have these same issues repeat every year, possibly even get worse? Like, what can we do collectively? What are you doing, you as an African in your country? What are you actively and realistically doing? And what can somebody like myself, who is in the diaspora, who is actually genuinely passionate about helping Africa, doing something. Of course, I'm not going to be. I'm still taking care of myself, but I'm not going to be the solution, the savior that Africa needs. I mean, I'm a nobody really, but what can I do to actively support? Because at the end of the day, those are my brothers, those are my sisters. What can we actively do without jeopardizing our safety, jeopardizing our sanity, but also making a difference in somebody else's life? It could be through education, through
Oh,
information, through
okay,
financial
okay.
support.
Let me say this. Let me just make a very quick point. Um, One, Africans fail because we're ignorant, and we are not well educated, right? So I would say first start investing in the motherland. In buy Africa. If there's any way
Okay.
you can support small businesses, anything you can do to invest back in the motherland, do that.
Hmm.
Just buy stuff, because it's that little that you buy, or that little money you put in someone's pocket goes such a long way, right? So if African merchants and African business owners, small business owners, they get clients, they get money, it helps educate their kids, and that already is another generation that is more empowered than the generation that is there. So I would
Hmm.
say, first of all, invest in Africa. You don't need to buy a piece of land, you don't need to do something big, but just invest in Africa, the same way we are glorifying Gucci and Versace and Nikes and all that.
Hmm.
Bring that money home, we need it.
Yes.
And
Okay.
we make so many cool stuff. Just invest first, invest in your country before you even think of making any other change. Invest in your country.
Thank you. And you did mention something along the lines of not encouraging people returning back to the continent to join the government because they want to work. Wouldn't you think that's actually the opposite? Because if they were to come back with their Western privilege and influence and education, financial security, wouldn't that have more? Wouldn't that give them more grounds to actually actively participate and counteract the the system in Africa that the average African may not necessarily have the privilege to fight? Does that make sense? Like if I was to not me personally, like say somebody who studied government or studied African policy in the States, has some type of financial security back in, and they wanted to move back to Africa and actually actively pursue government, pursue politics, and bring a lot of that realistic changes that needs to be done in Africa. Wouldn't you think that's actually a plus? Because
No,
they will be more enlightened, than the
no,
current
not
politicians we
not
have right
not necessarily, unless you have been brought up in Africa, you've gone to school, like you know how the country works.
now.
I don't I don't think it's a plus, because you will just get frustrated if you'll not get killed. It's that
Okay.
simple. Like you have no fighting chance. Like
Okay.
you, because when you have very few people in power, and it's the type of power that, if just they, with a snap of a finger you're gone.
Hmm.
Even that education that you have does it wouldn't, it wouldn't help you in any way, right? So
Okay.
I really don't think it's a plus in that sense. I don't think it is.
How about somebody that was also brought up in Africa, has African influence, African education, African mentality, African understanding, but then they also have Western exposure. So best of both worlds, if you want to put it like that. So yes,
Yeah.
they study about Western government, Western policies and politics, and they bring it back to Africa, and they know exactly, or at least they're open-minded enough to know where to tweak. Like this works in the UK, perhaps, but it will not necessarily work in Kenya the exact same way. So I'm going to tweak this to fit the actual narrative in Africa, in my country. With that, how about that? Is that more
Yes,
realistic?
I would say that's, yeah, I would say that's more realistic, because you can communicate and you can relate to people in the grassroots,
Hmm.
and that's the most important thing, because you're not going to tell people in the rural areas that your government is corrupt when you can't even speak their language.
Hmm.
So
And so, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, so yeah, if you have both, if you have both, and you understand how the systems work and how your country works, and you think that there's something you can bring to these people and they can benefit from it, I'd say yes, then you have, yeah, there is a plus there.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
there's an encouragement for diasporans who have best of both worlds, exposure of both, to come back with their influence.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And lastly, I would say this, that yeah, I would encourage that more diasporans, even if they haven't grown up in Africa and they want to help, um, don't just come and try and understand and try and relate before you bring up solutions to things that you don't even have an idea of how they operate,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
So because you cannot give me solutions to for my headache when I'm having a stomach ache,
Yeah.
right? So you have to
Yeah,
understand
yeah, yeah.
what is the root of the problem, and how these people, how and why they are the way they are, for you to even
Hmm.
offer solutions to them.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you very much, Joe. I appreciate it. Wisdom, you have something to add to that?
Actually going to start from the reacting from the previous question you asked.
Hmm.
We talked about white supremacy, the government feeling that the whites do it better than us. You understand? I actually agree with you. It's a problem with the governments. They feel the whites know better than we do, which is actually very wrong. There are practical examples. The trend we just bought from China some weeks ago dumped people at the Castena on the road. It got spoiled. Train that is not even up to a year got spoiled on the road in the middle of the night and dropped people. Train we got from China. The Brazilian man, my former governor, Rucha Sokorocha, brought to build bridges for us at Owerri. Those bridges are so spoiled now. You can't even use those bridges now. But they believed that the white people would do it better, but they didn't. Then fighting the government, how we can contribute in making changes, Africans and Africans in the diaspora, how we can make changes is difficult. It's practically difficult to fight the government while in Africa. A typical example is the NSAS protest that just happened. Some of those NSAS protesters are still in police detention. Some people's accounts are still frozen till now because they tried fighting the government, changing the narrative. Then for Africans in the diaspora, just like you are doing, Adeola is doing, Reno Omokure is doing, calling the government out, pointing out the bad things the governments are doing, calling people's attention to the mismanagement of funds and all the rest of them is a very good step. It's a very good contribution. It will go a long way in helping change things in the country because they actually have ears. They are humans. They have ears. They hear, and it puts pressure. It pressures them to do the right thing. I think that's a step. Then for Africans in diaspora coming back to Africa to hold leadership position, I actually enjoyed what Joe was saying. Joe's perspective. She said they need to come home first, understand the problem of the people so that they will know how to contribute. I feel and I agree that if Africans in diaspora come back to hold leadership experience, leadership positions with the experiences they've acquired abroad, they will be able to do better than the homegrown politicians will have.
Why do you think that? Do you think that's because there's more pressure for those homegrown ones to basically do the same thing that the former people did? It's
Sorry, I
much
didn't get
easier.
the point. I didn't get you.
So do you think it's much easier for them to conform to basically the same thing that the former people did, like the homegrown politicians? Do you think it's easier for them to conform to what the former leaderships did, as opposed to the Africans in diaspora coming back?
Yes, in my own view, I feel the Africans in diaspora they've already gotten the basic what do I call it, exposure they need. Most of our leaders here are hungry. They are
Mm-hmm.
hungry. They want to fill their pocket first. They've not gotten to that position. That's probably the highest position they've attained in life. So they see it as an opportunity. Most of them have not even traveled abroad. They see it as an opportunity to amass as much wealth as they can. But when you're bringing in someone that has traveled, studied abroad, has companies and houses abroad, I feel when they come back here, they won't be thinking of their pockets. They will think less of building mansions and all the rest of them, and think more on working to make the country better. That's my own view. Yeah.
Thank you. I do have a general
Then
question that anyone can answer. Go ahead.
yeah, I actually wanted to give an example. Like in Abia State, the current governor of Abia State now, he hasn't attained that position before. He's just a lecturer, and someone
Mm,
picked him up. A godfather picked him up and placed him in that position. And see how the state is.
mm,
He's seen wealth for the first time, and he's trying the much as he can to amass as much wealth as he can before he will leave the position,
mm. Yeah,
which
which
is
is
affecting
basically,
the people negatively.
yeah, which is basically the order of the day, because that's what everybody seems to be doing when they get to those positions. And I feel like a diasporan, well, not, yeah, well, somebody who has involvement and understanding of the continent, but also has exposure and education in the diaspora is more likely going to not, less likely to conform to that. So I do understand that. Thank you. And
Yeah.
thank you very much. I do want to ask like a quick
Yeah.
general question. Anyone can answer this, please. I understand that for the average African living on the continent, things are very limited. Your actions, your activities are very limited, and there's harsher reprimand if you were to speak out or try to do something against the government. What can the realistically, what can an average African living on the continent, what can that person do to continue surviving, to continue changing things for the better without just easily conforming? Like, what can be done for an average African living in your country? And any one of you guys can answer that. Like, does this person blindly just go to school knowing that the education system is not going to work, the job market is not going to be rewarding, um, there's no opportunities or realistic opportunity for the average person in your country, but you're still doing it anyway? What can you do to offset that on your own on an individual level?
I would say one, have better healthcare systems, because we are dying young, and we are dying we're dying in huge numbers, and it's mostly because of we're dying because of things that are diseases that are treatable,
Hmm.
or circumstances or injuries that can be treated. So one, have better healthcare systems. And when you have a healthy nation, then it's easier to fight all these things that come your way, and have a better education system.
So work on your health, your
Yeah.
individual health as a person.
Yes. No,
Okay.
no, or you say for me as a person, or
Yeah,
for my,
yeah. I'm just saying, like, like the average African in your area, what can they do to try to upset and try to fight as much as possible, realistically, without getting themselves in trouble? What can they do on their own in their own little corner?
just provide their children with better education if they can. If they can afford it, make sure that your kids go to good schools. Like, just invest in their education.
Okay. Education that will be rewarding, that's more likely to be rewarding as opposed to
That,
not.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That is more
Okay.
likely to be. Yes, yes.
Okay. Anybody else wants to chip in?
If I understand your question, you're like, yeah, what do you do to keep pushing and see, like, if the environment doesn't favor you protesting and all that, or holding the
Yeah.
government accountable? Yeah, I think, Ben, I think uh, when you, sorry, when you understand the system very well, you just need support. You just need to be very rich to be able to raise a movement that can actually sustain you while fighting the government. Let me give you an instance. The government has the secret service. The government has the police. The government has the army. The government has various forces around. Like when you come out individually, even online, you come out and protest against the government. We have experiences. We have people who actually came out to speak up against the government online that were picked up in Nigeria alone. And then that's why most people don't come out to actually criticize government directly. You see, people, that's why people prefer to stay anonymous and say, okay, yes, I want to criticize the government, and then I still want to live a normal life. So when you come out to say you're trying to hold the government accountable, you're trying to criticize the government, they frustrate you. You're kind of being tracked. And then the government has the power to either arrest you, and then nobody hears from you for a long time, and then you get threats about either giving up or continuing. We have the case of this the Sahara reporter guy, the
Hmm.
Showore, that has always
Hmm.
been on back and forth. And let me give you an instance. The thing is, this guy actually makes money, even though he's criticizing the government. So even if he's in prison, his online platform for news and all that gives him money. So the average Nigerian, like maybe I wake up one morning and decide to come out and hold the government accountable, and then I'm frustrated to a corner, I'm boxed to a corner. I'm being arrested. Maybe I might not have anything else to fall back to, and then I'm locked up in a place, and I have a family I'm supposed to fend for. Maybe I'm trying to fight for a better Nigeria because of these people. This is going to be very extremely very difficult for me, and then that's why I also bring it back to support from diaspora. Like I mentioned earlier on, the belief that the end SARS protest would have gone as long as it went through was because of the support from these guys out, mostly these guys outside. No, yes, we individuals from Nigeria also we had our own finances and resources and all that. But the ability for the government had to block accounts,
Yeah.
but still, you still saw foreign currencies entering to support this movement, and that's why at some point the government, we were actually winning the fight. At some point, they felt like the government was actually being held responsible for what they were doing up until some point where everything just went back to like it went from 100 to 0 at some point. But then when it was around 90, the government actually felt it. Like even when you're blocking the account of this guy, people they were getting support from elsewhere, every Nigerians in diaspora. So that's why I don't really want to push out totally the financial support from this other guy. So my point, Ben, is I just think it's very difficult for an individual to stand up and say you're challenging. Please, I want to quickly add, like when you say you want to come, like you want the Nigerian diaspora or the African diaspora to come back home and then get involved in politics. There's something we call in Nigeria grassroots politics, and that's what has been working here. That's why I mentioned sentiment and tribe. You don't just wake up one morning like you're in America, you decide to come back to Abia State and decide to contest for a governorship position. You won't have, no matter the experience you have, that's the reality. Let's face it, fact. And then I feel maybe anybody that has different opinions can also challenge you. You won't have the support of the average guy that has been here, no matter even if he's 78 years, even if 80 years, even if he's 100 years old, as long as he has been here and he has amassed this small kind of support from the grassroots.
That's true, actually.
Yes, and then he's so deep rooted in this electoral. He knows the system already, so he knows how to manipulate the system to favor him in election. Ben, I'm telling you that when you get back here with your wealth of experience, with your PhDs, in whatever field you have, you would not win an election in Nigeria. We'll have cases here. We'll have references here. So when someone tells you, okay, one Nigerian diaspora to come back, understand the system, and then contest elections, you won't win. That's how the system is designed. You won't win. That's the reality. True. Let's be honest with ourselves. You won't win.
Yeah.
So I feel what they should do is, if they are actually ready to come back home, it takes time to build supporters, loyal supporters. It takes time. So you don't just expect them to come back and then you're looking at them to contest for election. In fact, people will tell you that there's an adage you have in our place, like when a kid starts disturbing or coming out to challenge certain positions, they will tell him where his father was buried. They will tell you you were not even born in Nigeria or you've not spent time in Nigeria, so how do you understand the system? My friend, go and say, they frustrate you, they box you to a corner. This is the reality of Nigeria. This is the reality of Africa. And then when people are shying away from coming out, like saying it the way pure, the way it is, it doesn't make sense. That's how I look at it. So the point is, if they want to support and they want to come back and do politics, let them come back and start from the grassroots. That's what works here. And build this certain, up until we leave that sentimental, tribalistic part of politics. I don't think anybody can just come in and win. Okay. Thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for chipping in. So I suppose that one way of looking at it is basically challenging the average Africans to be more open-minded and receptive to diasporans who want to help. Try to engage more with people in the diaspora. Try to
exactly.
Yeah, bridge that gap, because at the end of the day, the diasporan would have a louder voice and louder platform and louder opportunities that you may not necessarily have. So bridge that gap, have that rapport, have that relationship to extend as much as possible, because Africa, we need all the help we can get right now. And when those diasporans come back to Africa to try to implement things, actually support them, like actively support them. And unfortunately, I've had a lot of instances where people will move back to Africa or just visit Africa and they will be taken advantage of. Unfortunately, that's happened to me before. When I went back to Nigeria, and a lot of people automatically assume that because I'm coming from America, I must be swimming in dollars. People are trying to take advantage of me, have me buy this, buy that, things like that, as opposed to actually supporting me, supporting my passion, supporting my vision. If a person like me actually had the intentions to move back to Africa, move back to Nigeria someday, I would lose that incentive. I would lose the motivation to move back to Africa, because I feel like I don't have the support system, because people are not there looking. They're more so looking at what they can gain from me as opposed to how they can support me, support them. So to be more open-minded and supporting diasporans, I suppose that would make sense, right, Sam?
Yes, Ben. That's exactly the position right now. Like you just mentioned your experience, like you coming to Nigeria, like you see, that's the point. Like the
And
mentality
try to
there
keep
is
it as concise as possible too, because I want this
Ben.
to
Yeah,
be yeah.
that's just it. Like you might be ripped off. Like you might get comments of, okay, we're in support. We're supporting you. Ben, take
Yeah.
lead and all that. At the end of the day, you have rebels behind you. Like it doesn't work out that way. You still see this particular set of people supporting this old set of leaders that have been doing them very bad. And even you, with your wealth of experience and knowledge from diaspora, you're back and you're trying to change the system. They don't want it. It's almost like they don't want it. You have a few people that want this sort of stuff. So that's just the point. That's just it.
Okay. Thank you very much. There's so much to talk about Africa. There's so much beauty in Africa. There's so much also wrong with Africa. And I feel like if we keep talking about this, we will not end today. There's just too many different factors at the end of the day, But I do appreciate you guys though for joining in. I do appreciate every single one of you. I know Lucky is gone because he has something to do. Um, but I do appreciate every single one of you. But I do want to ask a really last question for people like myself or people who are actually completely oblivious of anything in Africa. Are there resources that you would recommend for people to seek out to study about Africa, African history, Pan-Africanism, African education, African lifestyle, that may actually like resources that would give realistic perspective of the African plight?
I really don't know if there are. Maybe just maybe from such as this. Maybe try listening to podcasts that that I know there are a few podcasts that talk about certain issues concerning Africa, including politics. Um, Written, I really don't know. And also, I think the best experience is just for you to come down and
Mhm.
experience it for yourself. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
best way to. And I think, and I also feel like if you come down and you collect data and you write it down and you create that source of information, then
Hmm.
you would tell it in a way that people like you would understand. So I would say come
Yeah.
down and yeah, experience it firsthand.
Yeah. I agree. Thank you very much for chipping in.
Okay, I agree with you. I agree with you, Ben. Just like you started some years ago, visiting different countries in Africa will help you a lot to know more about Africa and talk more about Africa. Then I will also recommend you listen to clips from Professor Patrick Lumumba. I got to know about Professor Patrick Lumumba when I went to Ghana. So he's so passionate about Africa. He talks about African culture, problems of Africa, and how to make Africa work. So you look out for Professor Patrick Lumumba. I think he's from Kenya.
All right. So basically, seek out resources, podcasts, let the internet basically be your best guide, and also challenging people to firsthand experience, to immerse themselves in the culture, being there physically, get on a plane, interact with the people, but do your research before going so you know what to realistically expect. So that's what I'm getting from you guys, right?
Yes,
Yeah, and
yes.
also engage in forums that where you can engage in forums with people that are actually from Africa. If you can't come down here, have discussions with people who are here and hear it from them. If you can't find any sources of information.
Yeah, I agree very well. But don't just take whatever you see on the internet. I first-hand experience is one, and then two, articles written by Africans either staying in Africa or who were born in Africa or outside Nigeria and all that, or outside Africa. Don't just take whatever you see there. This is Africa. That's not really what's out there. Africa is different from what you see or what you read online. Just don't just go and read whatever stuff you see written by whoever person that hasn't been to Africa before, and then start there.
Hmm.
Mm,
Be selective. Yeah, I do
yeah,
agree.
yeah,
And like I said, there's so much to talk about Africa. There's so much good, there's so much wrong that we can talk all day. But I don't want this episode to go too long. So we're going to stop here, and hopefully in the future, I would like to discuss this more in depth, especially to some of these topics, like say African spirituality, opportunities in Africa, education in Africa, even immigration in Africa. But I do want to stop here though for now, for today. And I appreciate every single one of you guys taking your time to join this discussion. Joe, thank you for joining all the way from Kenya. Sam and Wisdom, thank you for joining all the way from Nigeria. And Lucky, he's from South Africa, but he just literally got back to America a few days ago, and he's actually still jet lagged. And he was still kind enough to join in spite of his schedule. So I do appreciate every single one of you guys. And if you're up for it, I would like to continue this some other time to talk about some of these topics more in depth. Hopefully next time it will not be more broad. It will not be broad. It will be more so specific to a topic in Africa. But thank you very much, guys, for joining. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. Africa is very beautiful. Africa, we're very happy people, we're resilient, we're strong people. That's all. Just come down, experience the life down here. Thank you so much, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ben, for the opportunity. I actually enjoyed myself, though I was having technical issues. And I want to recommend next time, let's get more people from different countries in Africa so that to add more flavor to our discussion. And so that people wouldn't criticize you just the way they criticize Beyonce for doing an album about Africa and just featuring people from West Africa. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. And it's really high time people stop thinking that when you land in an African airport, you'll meet lions and, Maasais or traditional dancers at the airport dancing for you. No, it doesn't happen like that. And we do have internet, by the way. We do not communicate using smoke signals.
That's true. Thank you, Joanne. That's very nice.
Thank you. We're not bush people, We're not.
No,
and there's and some parts of Africa that I've been to are actually much better than some parts of America that I've been to. And I know a lot of people in Africa may not necessarily agree with that or believe it, but it's actually very true that I've been to certain parts of Africa, even in Nigeria. They're significantly much better than certain parts in America, in big cities. But it's true. But again, thank you guys so much for this wonderful opportunity. I really do appreciate it. And I'm going to be signing off now. Until next time, okay?
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
This is the end of today's episode. If you enjoyed our discussion, please make sure to thumbs up, share your thoughts and opinions down below. Please also share with your friends and family. Feel free to email me at LetsTalkAboutUsWithUche@gmail.com. Please also follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Let's Talk with Uche. My website is www.letstalkaboutus.org. Please don't forget to subscribe, download it, and hit that bell notification so anytime I upload a video, you'll be the very first to be notified. Thank you very much. Until next time.